The original Friday the 13th, released in 1980, was created in the hopes of capitalizing on the success of another slasher flick released a year earlier, Halloween. The working title of the film was The Long Night at Camp Blood, and was independently produced on a budget of around $550,000. And little did they know, the movie would go on to generate almost $60 million worldwide, spawn 9 sequels, a crossover, a TV series, a reboot, a video game, and one of the most recognizable film icons of all time. So what was it about? 1957 at Camp Crystal Lake, a summer camp for kids located near Sussex County in New Jersey. A young boy tragically drowns while his guardians, the camp counselors, are too busy fucking around. And no, I mean that literally. They were doing the horizontal mambo to the romantic ambience of a special needs kid taking his terminal breath. A year later, 2 camp counselors sneak off for a little more premarital nookie, but are epically cock-blocked by being violently slaughtered by an unknown attacker. Camp Crystal Lake is closed down and becomes known by the excessively creative locals as Camp Blood. 21 years later, Steve Christie, son of the original owners, sets out to refurbish and reopen the family camp and hires a gaggle of horny teens to help him out. One night, a violent storm hits the camp and one by one, the teens are picked off by a mysterious attacker, until counselor Alice Hardy is the last one standing and comes face to face with the killer. So, you might be shocked that the killer of the first Friday movie wasn't the iconic hockey mask wielding Jason Voorhees, but actually his psychotic mother, Pamela Voorhees, who blames all camp counselors everywhere for her son's death.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
Alice and Mrs. Voorhees engage in a long game of cat and mouse before Alice catches Mrs. Voorhees off guard on the banks of the lake and decapitates her with a machete. Alice launches a boat into the middle of the lake to wait out the night, but is pulled into the icy depths by a deformed boy just as help arrives. She is pulled from the lake and revived with no one seeing or finding any trace of the boy. The mystery of his existence is left to the viewer to decide. Considering how many of the over-the-top cliches seemingly evolve from the Friday franchise, the original isn't really what you'd expect from it if you were to come at it as a new viewer. The movie is actually kinda subdued for the first part. It has the classic horror opening where a character ends up in a new town looking for a certain location, only to have all the locals feel uncomfortable about it.
Excuse me, how far is Camp Crystal Lake from here?
One of them tells them a story about something evil about the place, and another gives a dire warning about them being doomed.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
You first follow the counselors around on their daily task of fixing up the camp and goofing around. You get a scene where a bike cop visits and gives the teens the 3rd degree. One of the kids pretends to drown so he can sexually assault a workmate. There's a visit from the town crank, Crazy Ralph, to inform the rest of them that they are also doomed, and a strange scene where they find and kill a live snake in their cabin. Due to the fact that the would-be camp cook has had her throat slit en route to the camp, you know that there's something menacing out there. So, the movie walks a fine line between these scenes building suspense that there isn't something quite right, and a boring video diary outlining these kids' boring summer. Once the killings start in earnest, they're actually anything but over the top, at least from a modern slasher flick sense. Most of the killings are done from the killer's point of view, since you don't know until the very end who or why these murders are occurring, and most of the kills are either cut away from or a very quick special effect. Only a young Kevin Bacon get a somewhat gory death. An arrow shoved through his chest from under his bed, which overflows like a blood fountain. What it lacks with over-the-top gore, however, it makes up with a genuine sense of fear. Mostly because it's played with a more serious and realistic tone than later installments would have. The kids are staying in this remote, broken down camp. Their adult supervisor leaves in the middle of the day and gets delayed into the night, so they're alone. It's dark and it's dreary, and the wild storm makes the different cabins feel very isolated from each other and ripe for a deadly ambush. The movie only teases the sexual content the genre is generally known for. For example, at one point, a few of the counselors pull out strip Monopoly, which suggests some sexy shenanigans are about to go down, only to call the game 10 minutes later before any of them have removed more than a boot and a shirt. What a tease. The film does have a few notable drawbacks. Well, the actors they cast really do look like young summer school counselors rather than the obvious mid-30 models most horror movies use. They really aren't that interesting or memorable in the least. They're all young, skinny kids with brown hair. I found that I had trouble remembering which one was which and who coupled with who. Later movies would either give their kids generic characteristics like being the stoner or being the nerd, or at least spend some time early on providing a little backstory such as having them recently broken up or recovering from some sort of tragedy. In this movie, we get nothing. They're here to be counselors and to fix up the camp. That's it. Even the final girl, Alice, the one who ends up being the lone survivor, didn't get given any special backstory or trait. It seems like it was just a matter of luck on which would be the generic team to make it to the finish line. Okay, so there's the matter of the villain, Mrs. Pamela Voorhees. Although it generally is shocking when she's first revealed as the killer, her character always kind of ruined the movie for me if I thought about it too much. Early on, she kills all the other characters like a stealthy ninja, up until there's only one left, and then she decides to meet face to face under the guise of being an innocent bystander. She pretends to be concerned for the situation, before slowly revealing her insanity and murderous habits to Alice. Why did she bother doing this with this random girl when she took out all the others so efficiently? Especially considering, like I said, Alice doesn't have any special relationship with her or the camp. Before you know who she was able to do some superhuman feats like pin one of the kids to the wall with a couple of arrows, cut through the skull with a knife, and even throws one of the lifeless corpse through a glass window. You were made to feel the terror in the dark was some sort of unstoppable monster. But then you find out it's all been a postmenopausal woman in a terrible knitted sweater. Also, she's only armed with a small knife and later even goes at Alice with her bare hands. Really, any one of these fit kids should have been able to take this woman with ease. Not that Pamela isn't suitably scary in the insane, obviously unhinged kind of way. You can tell that she's a loose cannon and she fully intends to gut you like a fish. But it doesn't change the fact you literally have a strong young woman going mano a mano with grandma. It kinda cheapens the whole thing just a little. But still, Friday the 13th can be genuinely chilling at times. The legendary special effects master Tom Savini provided effects for some of the fun kills, and the villain reveal will go down in history as being memorable at the very least. Considering how much money this movie made, it obviously wasn't long until we got a sequel. Stay tuned for Friday the 13th Part 2.